Bought a good amount of games in 2014, which is kind of unusual for me. If you look behind me, you can see the majority of my games are actually Atari 2600, Game Boy games, and a few older consoles. 2014 brought some good games, some bad games, and some fantastic games. But for this, I'm going to talk about the worst of the worst. And that award goes to Harvest Moon 3D, The Lost Valley. Now I know that I said that my next review was going to be of Gravity Rush, but right now my job has been taking up a lot of my time, and I didn't really have much time to make this video, let alone find an artist for my next video. So I'm mostly making this so I can keep in line with my projected schedule, which I would like to make a video every 2 weeks for all you 17 subscribers. Now, I didn't find an artist for this video, and I did that for 2 reasons, which I'll discuss later. So, for now, let's just look at some history to this game. Now, Marvelous Interactive is the company known for making Farm Story in Japan, which is just Harvest Moon. Now, when they turned the game over to Natsumi to localize it, to basically translate it, they decided to call it Harvest Moon instead, which admittedly does sound better. Now, Marvelous Interactive is going with their own in-game localization team called Xseed. And now that Marvelous has moved on from Natsumi, Natsumi still owns the name Harvest Moon. So, they decided, let's make our own Harvest Moon game. Now, Natsumi has never made a Harvest Moon game, they've only translated them. So this is the first one that Marvelous Interactive has had no interaction with. And with that, let's get to the review. Harvest Moon, The Lost Valley, starts with your very generic character walking through a blizzard, when he stumbles upon a house that a harvest sprite tells him to go inside. Very quickly you find out that the harvest goddess has lost basically all of her powers, and the entire place that you found is stuck in a perpetual winter. You can still grow crops, raise animals, things like that, but the perpetual winter is just a real turn-off for me. In other games in the series, I just like to see the seasons change and also raise different crops depending on the season. But the biggest offender in this category is the game's characters. In other games in the series, there's some nice characters that you can actually get really close to depending on how much you give them things, how much you talk to them, things like that. Lost Valley's characters, however, are very two-dimensional and just flat-out boring. You can't even give them things to make them like you more. You have to talk to them every time you see them or do really menial tasks for them, just like raise a crop and that's it. And possibly the biggest flaw with the characters is there is no town in this game. Basically, each character will come to visit you on assigned days of the week for just a few hours. If you miss them, you potentially have to wait up to a week just to get to talk to them one more time and raise their affection just a little bit. In previous games of the series, you could always go into the town, find the character that you wanted to talk to, and the chats could actually get pretty deep, and it could tell a lot about the characters, and they could develop really well. One thing I really like about previous games in the series is that random events occur that show you a little bit more about each character, and when you go into town, you don't know if you're going to get one of these or not. And these events could affect some things, like it can make you closer to them. And since they were random, it felt very natural. It made the characters seem organic, and it wasn't forced at all. In Lost Valley, however, every night you have dreams that tell you about problems a character's having, a birthday coming up, stupid things like that, that it's just better when a game lets you figure it out for yourself instead of just feeding you the information. This game barely deserves a 4 out of 10 for story. It had boring, forced characters that you could only talk to a few hours at a time. Gameplay is where Harvest Moon games are supposed to shine. Now, it seems a little weird that somebody can enjoy a game about manual labor, but Harvest Moon is probably the most rewarding game series I've ever played. Whether it's growing rows and rows of pineapples, raising a few dozen cows, or finally giving the blue feather to that one special person. I've never felt like my time has been wasted on this series. However, in Lost Valley, there's no payoff for what you do. Now, what I'm about to say sounds like I'm just scraping the bottom of the barrel for complaints, but honestly I'm not. Harvest Moon Lost Valley completely takes out the shipment box. Instead, you have to sell everything to a merchant, which is just an extra step that's nowhere near as rewarding. There's no more going over to your shipment box, dumping out all of the crops that you just harvested, and being like, yeah, I did this. It's more like, I just harvested all these crops, now I gotta go find this guy to sell all my strawberries to. What the heck? Raising animals is probably the most fun thing about Lost Valley. It's much more fun than getting married to one of the bland characters that you can only talk to every now and then, and harvesting crops. The gimmick of Harvest Moon Lost Valley is that you can actually customize your farm in a Minecraft-esque style. It's very clunky, very tedious, and only fun for a little bit. That said, it is more fun than raising crops, raising animals, or getting married, all combined, in this game. While it is a little bit fun, it's still not enough to see this game through. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 for gameplay. Farming is very sluggish and just non-rewarding. The farm customization is just fun enough to keep it from getting a lower score. The visuals in Lost Valley are probably the nicest thing about the game. While the art for the characters does look a little weird, it does look stylized. I did find a few problems with rendering distant objects like trees, however. The worst part about the visuals, however, was the constant winter. Without seeing the season change every month, it was just boring, very bland to look at, and even by the time that you do get the regular seasons back, they're not that great to look at either. There really isn't much more to be said. It does have a pleasing aesthetic, so I think it should get a 6 out of 10. It's good, not great. The soundtrack in Lost Valley, while not bad, could have definitely just used some more thought put into it. It felt like the music was just there to get the job done and not really impress anybody. Some tracks are good, some tracks are okay, just generally lackluster. I think it deserves a 5 out of 10, just right in the middle. Not a 10, not a 0, absolutely average. The way that Lost Valley uses the special features of the 3DS is bad. I've said before that the 3DS's special features are the 3D and the touchscreen. The way that it uses the 3D is, it doesn't. There is no 3D. One of the best features about the 3DS, it just doesn't utilize it. And the way it uses the touchscreen isn't too much better. Just a general show the map. No special things like petting the animals like in previous ones. It's just, it didn't seem like they perfected the game before they released it. Heck, for a $30 game at launch, I should have expected it. For no use of the 3D, and just the most basic use of the touchscreen, it deserves a 3 out of 10. 3D can add so much to a game. Some games even thrive off of it, like Super Mario 3D Land. It even says, Harvest Moon 3D The Lost Valley. False advertising, Natsumi. Please, do not sue me for talking bad about your game. Overall, Lost Valley is just a generally lackluster game. It definitely deserves a 4 out of 10. It just feels generally clunky, rushed, and devoid of everything that makes the series so special. Boring characters, non-rewarding gameplay, and absolutely no use of the 3D are just a few flaws with this game. If you are looking to pick this game up, just keep in mind, this is not the Harvest Moon that you and I love. I can find things that I like about the game, like the okay visuals, or the somewhat fun customization of the farm. Check this game out if you can find it for cheap. I'm very sorry that I don't have an artist for this video. I did that for 2 reasons. One, I just didn't have enough time and I really wanted to just make another review for you guys. And also, I didn't want my negative opinion of the game be misinterpreted for a negative opinion of the art or the artist. I don't know what my next review is going to be, but with Story of Seasons already pre-ordered, it's looking pretty good for that. Please leave me a comment if you agreed or disagreed with anything. I will try to get back to you. I'd love to have a chat with you about your thoughts and my thoughts on the game. If you want some more reviews now, please check out my past game reviews, David's movie reviews, or May's cartoon reviews. You can find them all located on the Sentient Sock Puppets YouTube channel. With that, thanks again, and I'll see you next time.